Hello, 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 hello. I just got my laptop pulled up so I can see the chat. Hello, Hellbound. Nice to see you here. I hope that everyone is doing well. Hey, Elle. Good to see you too. Give it a minute here. How is the stream? Is it glitching or is it okay? Because it looks okay on my end, but it looks kind of glitchy on my computer. Can you hear me okay? Is the sound okay? Okay. I wonder why it looks so strange on my computer. Okay, so happy Saturn's Day. I don't know if I'm going to make this a reoccurring thing or not, but this will be the first of my Saturn's Day live streams. There may be more, there may not be. I'm not really sure. But I'm very much trying to channel the discipline and the devotion of Saturn on this day. Hello, thanks God. I'm very much trying to channel that, right? And so I worked today. It was a long day at work. And like, I am a people person, genuinely. I am one of those weirdos who genuinely like working in customer service. Hi, Timothy. I really do. I love interacting with people. I love engaging with people, but that doesn't mean that it's not still taxing and tiring sometimes. And so in today's live stream, I kind of want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about solitary witchcraft and initiatory witchcraft, of course. That's what this is titled. But I also want to talk about just being a working witch in general, particularly if you also work outside of metaphysics. We'll see if I have time to get to that topic. That might have to be its own video. I'm not really sure. But I especially want to focus on initiatory witchcraft and solitary witchcraft. This is something that I feel like kind of goes through these waves every so often on social media, where initiations, the topic of initiation and solitary witchcraft / initiatory witchcraft kind of go, I don't want to say viral, but it goes through waves in terms of being on topic, right? Where people are making a lot of content about it, talking about it. And I feel like, I think this is especially permanent for me right now, just because, so this time of year within our coven, it's very much kind of like this courtship sort of period, right? Thank you, Jen. It's very much this courtship sort of period, as we're shifting through Taurus and entering Gemini season, as we are, kind of moving more so into peak summer, and soon to be, in Cancer and with the summer solstice. This is very much a courtship time. So with all respect to our coven, we have not public, but we have some open things going on, right? And so we will have specially chosen invited guests to our rituals. So let me first explain the difference between public and open. So how we define this, right, is public means anybody and everybody, okay? And it has nothing to do with whether or not a ritual is in a public space, because if you don't know that the ritual is going on, you're going to have no idea. So it has nothing to do about whether it's in a public space, okay? I have hosted and put on and been a part of rituals in public parks, all over the place. State parks, public parks, parking lots, whole 9 yards, right? So it's not so much about it being a public place. And it's more so a public ritual means it's being put on for the general public. So that means that, you know, if I invite Tom, Dick, and Harry, right, to the ritual, then they're free to bring their plus ones if they want to. Completely free to bring their plus ones. An open ritual, though, an open ritual is different. So regardless of whether an open ritual is held in a public setting or if it is held in a witch's home or wherever, an open ritual is not necessarily just open for the public, if that makes sense. An open ritual is something where you get an invitation, you're selected, you're requested, you know, and you can either attend or not attend. Typically, at an open ritual, if you're receiving an invitation, you're going to be personally invited from someone in the coven. That's kind of how that works. And so all of that is important to say for this conversation so that you all kind of know where I'm coming from and how this topic has came to be for tonight's live stream. But first, definitely make sure that you grab yourself a snack or a cocktail or something. And yeah, we're going to hang out and we're going to talk about this. And, you know, I thought about making a more kind of formal, professional, whatever that is, professional, put together, you know, edited video about this. But it's really kind of just weighing heavy on my spirit right now. And so I kind of wanted to just word vomit in a live stream and just kind of talk about it because it's on my heart and it's on my spirit right now, you know? So yeah, Hellbound. You know, I think that they serve their own purpose, right? So private rituals, public rituals, because we also have those too. We have closed rituals. So there's public, there's open, there's closed. Closed is like our private, closed, you know. Okay. So let's talk about it. So solitary witchcraft, right? Whole thing, whole tea. You can totally be a solitary witch. You can enjoy your solitude. Some covens, you can be in the coven and you can be a solitary witch in the sense that you can have your own practice outside of the coven. I am not talking from the standpoint of being a solitary witch. While I have my own practice, I'm very much a coven witch, okay? And I don't know what it is about some solitary witches, but it's almost like some solitary witches very much have like a hard-on for tradition or for lineages, right? Like they have a hate boner for it. And by no means am I trying to diss on any of you who may also be a solitary witch. Okay? That's fine. There's nothing wrong with practicing in a solitary sort of practice. So please don't take that from this video. What is annoying for me and for many other coven witches is when solitary practitioners who are solitary, right? So they're not interested in group ritual. They're not interested in group magic of any kind, feel the need to speak for or have opinions about other traditions and other groups, right? Which you are not a part of, babe. So why you are trying to speak for groups, weird, right? How are you going to speak for a group that you're not part of? And then also, why do you care what a group is doing? And something else that I've been seeing a lot lately on the witch tubes, if you will, is born a witch, made a witch. I've been seeing this again, and this is not a new thing, but this is something that just like initiatory witchcraft and solitary witchcraft comes up, right? And I think that this all kind of ties in together. So what I mean by this is, some people believe that you are born witch, as in once a witch, always a witch, you were born a witch, whatever. Some people treat witches like mythological creatures. Some witches act like they're mythological creatures. And then you have this other camp, right, where you're made a witch, however that might be, whether you're made a witch via initiation, whether you're made a witch by practicing witchcraft, whatever. I personally have already made a video on this topic. And I believe, like most things in the occult, both things can be true at the same time. I very much believe that some people are truly and genuinely born as witch. And the fact that I believe that some people tap into the current of witchcraft more naturally. They have it in their bones. It's in their blood, so to speak, right? Very similarly to how there are people who grow up in families of nurses, healthcare providers, barbers, okay? Which I'm not necessarily trying to associate the craft with an occupation, though it can be for some witches. I'm just saying, if you grew up literally with your mothers and your uncles and your aunties and whatever in a hair salon as a young child, you were around that environment. You grew up in that environment. And then you, as you got older, decided to take that path. Would you not be born and made a hairdresser? Because I think that you would be. So I don't necessarily think that the concept of being born a witch is necessarily elitist, but I do think that there are witches who take it to that level, who kind of mirror some notions that are found throughout supremacy groups and who try to act like, they're holier than thou or better than thou because they were born as witch. Well, here's my thing too. I've known plenty of people who are very much born witches, if you will, who do nothing with it and it gets them nowhere. And I know people who, have fought very hard and have done a lot of study and have worked extremely hard at developing their spiritual life, their spiritual practice. And you can tell because it's gotten them places. And I think that that's something to be said about the craft, is that if someone is sitting here toiting whatever to you, really, take a look at them and take a look at the source and take a look at where it's coming from, right? Who is saying this and what do they have to show for it? What has this given them? So tying this back into initiatory witchcraft also ties in this word exclusive and exclusionary, which very much, especially witches of my generation, being a millennial, we don't like exclusionary practices. We don't like exclusionary things. We oftentimes feel like, that's kind of problematic. In the craft, I don't necessarily think that it is. Now, when I'm talking about exclusionary, I'm not saying that I, myself, Jasmine Ambrosia, are going to tell you that you're not a witch. I'm not talking about gatekeeping. I'm talking about when it comes to initiatory covens. No one, I don't care who they are, what their title is or not title, if they're solitary or if they're a coven witch, whatever. Of course, no one has the authority or the right to tell you that you are not allowed to be in this community. Okay, that should be a given. So when I'm talking about exclusionary, I'm saying not every group is for every witch, and not every witch is for every group. And also taking this back to the solitary practitioners, some of these solitary practitioners, okay, and this is all tea and all shade, really. Some of these solitary practitioners are not solitary by choice, if you know what I'm saying. Okay. Some of these solitary practitioners, you guys, are not solitary by choice. And there's probably a reason for that. you know. Hellbound, I see your question. So is your coven pretty consistent, or do you have a lot of new members coming in and out? So I'm not sure if you mean consistent in the fact of like how often do we meet up, or consistent in like our membership. I'm not really sure. But I feel like what you're saying is, as far as like our members, do we have new members coming in and out? No, we do not. Now, where I live in Indiana, surprisingly, okay, I think most people would think that here in Indiana, we wouldn't have a whole lot of magical communities, but we very much do. Showing up, Hellbound. So we have a core group, of course, like we have our inner and outer sort of court, or inner and outer sort of circle, and we have our initiated members. And so there are times of year, like the lighter half of the year, where we will have open sabbats, where we will invite people. And then usually during the darker half of the year, everything is totally closed. So we don't host at this time, I will say, we don't host any sort of public rituals for the public. That's just not something that we're interested in doing at this time. I won't say that we would never do that, but at this time, that's not something that we're doing. As far as people showing up for the sabbats that are open, there is some variance there, because we're only typically putting on 3 to 4 open sabbats a year. And so usually what happens is we kind of have like a group of non-initiated guests. So I would consider these guests to be like seekers. I would consider these guests to be, I think seekers is the word I'm going to use there. So they're more than just general public, because they've been specifically plucked and chosen. And in doing so, I think it's really actually led to the survival of our coven, and how our coven has been running now for 5 years, 6 years, something like this. And, many of us have also kind of like grown up together through even our 20s. So we're extremely tight knit. We're extremely, extremely close. Of course, we're not blood related, but it is like family. It is like a magical family. It is like that sort of kinship that you might find in like a fraternity or a sorority. And so that's why I made that merch when they called us a drunken sorority. I thought it was funny, because they were saying that like it was a bad thing. But okay, so going back to the topic at hand here. So to kind of answer the second part of what I was saying, Hellbound, is, we'll have like this group of seekers, right, from year to year. And, they're invited to come to the first open sabbat of the year. And they come, and then depending on how things go and how the energy mixes, they may or may not be invited to attend another sabbat. So, and then if they come, if they get invited again, they come back again. And, we have our own things that we are looking for. We have our own sort of requirements or expectations when it comes to covenry. So when we are looking at potential initiates, we have things that we are looking for. We have signs and symbols that we are looking for. But aside from that, there's also like physical criteria, in the sense that they have to show up for so many sabbats before they can even petition. So once they align themselves to be in a position where they can petition, then they would kind of move from being like a seeker, if you will, which I don't really like that term, but that's the term that we're using. Hello, Strawberry Sarah. That's just the term that we're using here. So they would kind of graduate or move on from being like a seeker to then a petitioner. And then the petitioning process is a two-way street. And, this is some witchy words of wisdom for any solitary practitioners that might be interested in covenry, right? Or, you know, maybe are invited to attending some rituals. I mean, this time of year, um, a lot of covens and groups are having a lot of open stuff. So if you are going to something like that, and if you are being extended an invitation, you need to know that while the coven or a group might be kind of analyzing you and trying to see if they think you would be the right fit for their order or their group, you should really also be doing the same thing. You should be looking at all of the members of the coven, not just coven leadership, but especially coven leadership, but all of the members really. And you should really be assessing them and their energy, their maturity level, where they're at in their practice. Not that the craft has to provide materialistic things per se, because that's not everyone's cup of tea, but they should have a good head on their shoulders. They should probably be people who interact well in a group, some social maturity, politeness, respect. Yeah, the fits coven. It has to fit both the petitioner and the coven. So, and this is just how we do things, right? Once again, though, I don't know why the opinions of solitary witches on what our coven or any other coven is doing is really relevant, because you don't know entirely what we're doing because you're not initiated. So just like other covens, it's hard for me to really, I can have an opinion on um, leadership of other covens. I can have an opinion on people who are in other covens, but I can't necessarily really have an opinion on the actual practice of a coven that I'm not in because I'm not initiated in that coven. I mean, there might be some things, right, that are kind of common knowledge about big traditions. Sure. I mean, you can find plenty of information about Gardnerians. You can find plenty of information about Alexandrians. But even still, those traditions also have some things that I'm sure are not completely in the public. Um, you know, you know what I'm saying? So there's going to be information that you are going to receive as an initiating witch. But in order to kind of move to an initiation sort of stage, you first have to be in the petitioning stage. And in order to really be in the petitioning stage, you kind of have to be around and come to these events and be a seeker first. That got really loud. I'm really in the mood for like some Phantom of the Opera organ vibes. I put on like this black, it's actually like a mermaid dress, right? With this lace, sweetheart neckline, adorable. I put on this gown just because I felt like it. I didn't wear this to work or anything. I just felt like it. Do a lot of covens do it this way as well? I would say that most tradcraft covens / also most Wiccan based covens are going to do it this way. I would even say that some of this could be true for other orders as well outside of witchcraft. And honestly, it's just really good practice, I think, because it keeps the integrity of the group as well as it respects the person who may or may not be even seeking petitioning. We have people that we have invited who we have invited them because we trust them or we've built some sort of rapport, and they might not have any interest at all in ever petitioning. So, every group is going to be different on how they do things. But at least in our coven, like if we invite someone, that doesn't necessarily translate to an invitation to petition. That means like, we're inviting you. we like you. You've expressed interest in wanting to maybe be a part of something like this, and we're okay with having you with us. And like I mentioned before, when I was talking about closed, open, public rituals, right? Public is totally open, bring plus ones, everyone is welcome. Um, I just had a brain fart, sorry. Hold on. Yeah, closed would be just the people who are initiated. Open would be invited guests, and then public is everyone and their mom and them. So that's also pretty standard too. And I will say that in our tradition for our coven, it I think has really and truly been such, I would say, a godsend, a saving grace. Truly, truly, truly. Here in Indiana, in Indianapolis, okay, where I live, there have been many groups. Okay, I have been in kind of the local witch scene here in our community for a little over a decade, and there have been many, many, many groups. And I've seen like the rise and fall and rebirth of many groups. And obviously I haven't been on the inside of these groups, but it's been rather interesting. And I think that the fact that in our coven we are so, for one, tight knit and almost familial, we have that camaraderie and that sort of kinship, but two, the fact that we are so incredibly particular, which we've been heavily scrutinized for being exclusionary. And it's not that I don't believe that all people should have access to the craft, because I absolutely do, of course. I don't think that the craft should necessarily be gatekept, right? I don't think that at all. I think that if you want to delve into the craft, be my guest. Like, happy to have you here. It's wonderful. I feel the same way about paganism. I felt myself shifting a little bit. I feel like more and more out of, not that I wouldn't still identify as pagan, because I would to an extent, but I find myself shifting more and more out of, I feel like, the sort of neo-pagan community and more into just like the craft community or the witch community, which is, even more nuanced in some ways. But I find that, especially being pulled more towards occultism, ceremonial magic, I find that I don't always have as much in common sometimes with just simply neo-pagans. Not that there's anything wrong with practicing neo-paganism, but I find that sometimes there's that divide there. And I find that also sometimes neo-pagans don't always really like witches, even if they are witches themselves and seem to practice witchcraft. Yeah. But no, I don't think that the craft should be gatekept per se. I think that if someone wants to get into practicing witchcraft, I think that they should. I think that, I don't want to support a sort of ableist rhetoric, I guess, is what I'm trying to clarify. However, I don't think that every space is also for everyone. And the fact that I don't think that it's really an issue if there are groups that choose to be exclusionary, right? That's not telling you that you cannot practice the craft or you cannot identify as witch or as pagan or whatever. But it does mean that this is a space that we have created that you do not have permission to enter just because you think you're entitled to, or just because you want to, when you have put no work and no energy into building this that we have put our energy into building. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that that kind of clarifies that I don't support just broadly gatekeeping the craft, um, regardless of born witches or um, made witches. And like I mentioned earlier in this live, I very much think that witches are both. I think that witches are born, and I also think that witches are made. I think that there are also witches that are born witches that are then later made witches. Like, I think, like most things in the occult, the answer is just yes. Like, there are multiple moving parts and multiple things that can be true at the same time. But yeah, so we currently are having, you know, these open sabbats, and we, you know, are going to be getting down to our last for this year soon, because later in the year, we sort of start kind of closing off more and more and more, the more that the year wanes. So, and then we get into our initiations and things like that. And so, you know, there's also sometimes hard conversations to have, right, with people who are looking to join a coven. And I think that if you find yourself in a position where you are wanting to initiate into a coven, I think that a good thing to do would be to really ask yourself why, and also why this particular coven. What does this coven have to offer you? How do you personally benefit from being in this coven? I think you have every single right to be selfish and to ask questions and to be a little demanding. And really, I think when it comes to that petitioning sort of level, right, the dialogue should be about boundaries and expectations. That's what this should be about. Setting clear boundaries for the petitioner and then also for the coven. Most groups are going to have rules or codes of conduct or things like that that you would be needing to kind of agree with or subscribe to. And if you can't, it's in your best interest. If you cannot meet those expectations, or if you cannot meet at that boundary line, then it's in your best interest as a petitioner to not initiate, because it's just going to cause more heartache, more drama, and more issues if you're dishonest with yourself and choose to sign up for something that maybe you're really maybe you don't have the time for it, because there's also like a time obligation, right? Or maybe you're just not ready for now. So I've had in the past, you know, even good friends who have kind of come into the fold and who have sought out initiation, and it never came to pass. And that's difficult to have those conversations with friends, because of course, we have this friendship outside of just the craft. But I feel like those conversations are conversations worth having, because once again, I feel like it really does protect the integrity of the group as a whole. And like I had mentioned earlier in this live, I really feel like that is one of the keys of survival that our coven has been surviving, because something that I've been kind of noticing, and I won't necessarily say if this is worldwide statistic, but at least I would say in the States, it very much seems like most established covens tend to kind of rise and fall and crash and burn in about 3 years. That kind of to me seems like the average. And I guess we should also kind of define here what I mean by coven, because I think that that's a really good question. If you are looking to initiate into a group, ask them how they define their group, because I think that that might kind of give you more insight on what this is. So how I define coven personally, and I would say this is probably how a lot of other SC witches would also define covenry, is that it's an agreement of magical kinship. There are oaths that are said that I am not going to say here on this live, because there are some things that are personal, right? And there are some things that are for the petitioner to find out and then the initiate to practice. But there are oaths that are said, and there are vows that are made, and there are real physical and astral commitments that are made, and there are boundaries and those expectations that are set and agreed upon. But it's also weaving magic together. It's raising that sort of frequency and that energy within ceremonial magic together. Okay. It's organized and it's structured, and there is a lineage. That is how I would define covenry. To me personally, okay, and this is going to be a very Saturn theme here with the discipline, the devotion, right? The restriction. Sorry, you're on this gooseneck. This is going to be a very Saturn-like theme, but, and I know this is going to be controversial yet brave, but I personally don't think that a social club is a coven. No, ma'am. I don't think a social club is a coven. Exactly, Hellbound. Don't make a promise you know you can't keep, but if you make a promise, don't break it. That's essentially, a core theme of being an initiated witch. Brace yourself for controversy. I don't feel like a social club is necessarily witchcraft, in the sense that I have met people. Okay, I'm not going to name anyone by name, because some of these people I care about here. And some of these people may be watching. But in my opinion, a true practicing coven is not about sitting around and talking about witchcraft. It's about doing witchcraft. To me, witch is just as much of a noun, in the sense that it's who I am to my core. Like, I do everything as witch. I live witch. I am witch. Everything to me comes secondary to my witchdom, to my witchness. So it's just as much of a noun as who I am, as much as it is what I do. It's a verb in that way. And I would also say that that's something that's just a chemistry thing. If you do not live as witch, if witchcraft for you is more of a hobby, or if it's kind of more of like a secondary thing that you do occasionally, then, our coven would probably definitely not be the coven for you. There might be other groups out there who call themselves covens, which I don't think that I have the authority on the word coven here. So I'm not trying to gatekeep that word and tell people how they can and cannot identify, because that's not my motive here. I'm just saying how I identify coven. So to me personally, if you just get together with a group of witches, and if you guys hang out around a bonfire and chug White Claws, which sounds like an amazing time to me. Okay, I'm not knocking that, but that to me is not really a coven. If you invite over 4 of your close friends, because it's a full moon and all of you like to dress up witchy, and you sit around and bitch about work, and have wine, like, that to me is not really covenry. I mean, those things can be a part of covenry. There's definitely times where me and my coven mates will go out for a cocktail. We're normal, regular, degular, everyday people. We all have jobs. We all work, we have families, we have loved ones, we have hobbies, we have passions outside of the craft. But, we're witches first. And that doesn't mean that we can't enjoy having a couple cocktails around a bonfire. And there is magic in that as well. But I don't believe that you need to be an initiated witch to practice folk magic. I don't think that you need to be initiated into any sort of tradition to practice folk magic. If you want to hang out with some of your bessies and if you guys want to make, cute little folk magic talismans and kiki and haha, that's what benefit do you have to being initiated? What purpose would it serve to have any sort of like inner mysteries? I mean, I love a chicken's foot just like the rest of us, but is that really a mystery? Is that really a secret? You know what I mean? Is the Pinterest spell that we found really a hidden mystery? Maybe not. Maybe not, right? Practice, practice, practice. Yes, Laura. That's something that I think a lot of groups that I feel like are worth their salt would be looking at is, do you have your own practice? I think a big sort of red flag, right, that kind of comes up when people are looking to initiate is that they don't have their own practice, that they don't have their own founts of power. They don't have their own sacredness, and they're trying to find that outside of themselves. They're trying to find power, and they're trying to find the divine or sacredness outside of self, which is not something that we promote at all in our coven. And I definitely think that you need to have a solid foundation yourself first, within yourself and in your own practice before you can go looking to find other places. I mean, if you want to put the power in the hands of a puppet, you could just go to church. Okay. I'm looking at your guys' comments here. Strawberry says, do you like Hecate? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Cindy says, that's lovely. Still community building. I can imagine intimacy must first be established to be brought into closed. Yes. And not only just a level of intimacy, but also an initiation would need to take place in order for someone to be part of a closed ritual. They would need to be a fully initiated member. No animal skulls or animal parts in your practice? We love a good skull. Okay, Morgan, I think I answered your question of, do a lot of covens do it this way as well? Jen, I'm glad that you like the organ sound. Thank you, Hellbound. I like the stress too. Stu, I'm so sorry to hear about the pagan pride stuff. We've been struggling with that as well here in Indiana. We haven't had a pagan pride since 2019. Yeah, it's hard. And I think that also, I think COVID, such strange times we're still living through, of course, here in this plague. But that's when I saw a lot of covens truly die out, was during COVID. Thank you, fiction lady. During COVID, unfortunately, I, saw many covens here in my local area just not make it, really fall apart. And I, like, do I think it's the fault of, COVID? No, not necessarily. I mean, our coven survived through COVID, so I don't think COVID destroyed the covens. Gosh, this is going to be more controversy. This is going to be more controversy. I should really, I feel like, save some of these controversial craft topics for Saturn's Day lives, where, we have cocktails together and just bitch. No, I'm kidding. Or am I? Okay. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by looking at your guys' comments, because you guys have had some really good conversations in here, and that's always really cool to see that you guys are also talking amongst yourselves, because that's what I really like here on the channel, is like kind of having that sort of space where we can kind of just all connect. So let's talk about COVID and covenry. This might be a whole other topic for a whole other time, because I only have like a little bit longer I'm going to be on here, and there are some details that I would like to share that I need to get permission first before I share. But yes, I saw 4 of our local covens die out here in our area. 4. Which, back in the days of Witchvox, if any of you guys remember Witchvox, I remember at the time we had something like 26 groups in our area. I really miss Witchvox. I think that it was such a good resource. And I would love to see someone start something like that up. I started a local Facebook group for my local area because at the time we just didn't have a Facebook group. And I know that not everyone does Facebook. I get that. But at the time, back in 2014, we didn't have a witchy Facebook group for my city. Hey, Ashley. We didn't have a witchy Facebook group for my city, so I started one. I'm a cardinal sun, so I am very solution oriented. And if I see a problem, I'm just going to fix it. That's how I kind of operate. And we had some for the state, but we did not have any Facebook groups for my city. And I missed that sort of current that Witchvox provided. So that's why I made the Facebook group. And, it's not really fully utilized in the way that Witchvox was serving, because that's what Witchvox was created for, right? And Facebook groups, let's be real, are some of the best place for dank memes. So that's primarily what it's used for. Now, some groups do promote in the Facebook group, and businesses like local witch/pagan businesses also promote. I think that's wonderful. Occasionally people go live. I think that's wonderful. Like, it's a pretty free flowing sort of group without a lot of rules. But it's just primarily focused on my local city. And Witchvox served such a unique purpose because you could literally search up the area that you're in, and any groups that wanted to register could. And, it would be attached to like an area code, and you could find local groups around you, and you could contact leadership of those groups, and, you could read a little bit about them. You could contact them. And, I think that post Witchvox, it's been a little bit of a struggle, I think, for our wider witch community to especially solitaries that are looking for covenry, to really find groups. Because unless a group has a website, which not all do, or a big social media presence, people aren't even going to know about them unless it's word of mouth. And I don't necessarily think that's all a bad thing, right? I don't think that's all a bad thing at all. Sarah, are you talking about Sabbaths or Sabbats? Because I do celebrate both. So let me know. What was I talking about, you guys? What was I talking about? I get on these, the community and COVID. Right. See, I get on these rambles, and normally when I'm not live and if I'm making a video, when I have these little brain fart moments where I want to hit my vape or take a sip or fix my hair or whatever, I just edit that shit out. My content is very real and it's very genuine, and it's, my real thoughts in that moment. But a lot of this stuff, the and the pulling hair out of my face and trying to remember what I was going to say, I edit out. So she is getting old. She is practically dead, really. So I think the death of Witch Fox, Hellbound, I think you're right. I think it was a big blow to the community. I think that it's a hole that has not been filled. And hopefully it will, And we do need another Witch Fox. For sure. Fiction Lady, that's a great point to bring up, actually. Fiction Lady says, my first coven was online and I miss it. I found a lot of Oyakul witches through it, but that shut down too. Strawberry, I think you're talking about like the Wiccan Sabbats. Not all witches do celebrate the Sabbats. Not all pagans celebrate all of the Sabbats. We do. Yes, Hellbound. I knew as soon as those words left my mouth, you were going to say something like that. I knew that. So COVID, right? So I feel like COVID did not destroy or kill any of our covens here, but 4 covens did die out. And when I say die out, I don't mean their members died. I mean their whole coven kind of dissolved and disintegrated. Their tradition, their magic, it just crumbled like ashes, like sand, just disintegrated. And, it's sad, but I think that kind of goes to show that sometimes when things get too big, they get harder to kind of shepherd or steer if the boat is too big, right? Covens are also not meant to be congregations. And there was one coven that grew quite large. And they were just honestly really letting anybody and everybody initiate who wanted to show up. There wasn't really a whole lot of mystery tradition to it. And they would just kind of take anybody. And I think that was detrimental to the longevity of their coven because they grew too much too fast. And I think it's in a coven's like best interest to follow the practice of hiving to where you keep these groups small and, people rise through degrees and then continue the lineage on, as opposed to one high priest or one high priestess managing a group of 20 plus witches. That's a lot for anyone, but especially someone who is in a position of organizing um, a magical ministry or organizing rituals and facilitating those things. Laura, I feel like COVID helped give me more time to dive into my craft further. I do too, absolutely. I mean, completely, absolutely, I agree. There has to be a vetting process. Too many trendy timers. I need authentic intentions and connections. Absolutely. And I very much believe that, things that are truly worth it are truly worth waiting for. So that's kind of a red flag. I would say that if you are a sort of witch who wants too much too fast, that's going to be a red flag for a lot of groups. And it should be a red flag for you if you feel like you are being groomed or cultivated. Notice the word cultivated in a group. If a group is kind of circling around you or preying on you in that way, if you feel like they are, it's because they are, babe. It's because they are. Do I have any advice for someone who's only been practicing for 2 years? Well, first of all, I would just eliminate the word only, because practicing for 2 years, babe, is practicing for 2 years. There's no shame in the amount of time that you've been practicing. I think that it's wonderful that you've been practicing for 2 years. I mean, there are so many witches who never even leave the armchair. All they do is just sit here and read, right? Like, they don't actually apply some of the things that they've learned in practice. So practicing for 2 years is very much an accomplishment in of itself, and it's nothing that you should be ashamed for. And as far as just general witchy advice, that's difficult because that's so broad. In this life, I'm kind of talking specifically about groups and covens and solitary witches and, that sort of thing. So I guess I'll kind of stick to that sort of theme here, but it's also okay if you decide to never be a group ritual sort of person, if you decide to never join any magical orders. I'm hoping I'm done with my practice soon, but not yet. LOL. Redcap says, I feel like our society has lost its sacred heritage to this modern world. I wonder what it will take to get back to what we have historically lost. Yeah. I think that that's where, in my opinion, a little bit of the fourth power kind of comes in the sense of like, keep silent. I think that the wider current of witchcraft should be accessible to all people. I think that individual groups' cultivated magic, you are not entitled to, and it does not need to be accessible. Witchcraft as a whole, paganism as a whole, and our community, absolutely. Anyone and everyone is welcome, genuinely. As far as individual cultivated practices, traditions, spirits, egregores, customs, rites, and rituals, no, I don't think that. And I know that that's controversial. And I know that some people are going to, that's going to upset some people. It has upset some people. It very much has, our coven, just speaking from my own experience, like, we were called that drunken sorority. That's why I made those t-shirts and merch, because I thought it was hilarious. And I'm a big supporter and practitioner of spiritual alchemy. And so if I can take some lead and turn it into gold, honey, I will. And if I can take your negative comments and turn it into merch and, you know, cushion my pocket and have some cute clothing out of it or tumblers, and make you look like a fool, I absolutely will take that opportunity every time it presents itself. Leaving the armchair can be the hardest part in the beginning. It gets comfy there. I know that was my biggest hang up in the beginning for me. You're right. You're right, Ashley. And that's something that I find, you know, you can even fall back into. You know, I've only been practicing for about a decade. And I find new witches that have only been practicing for 2 years, a year, 6 months, to be some of the most invigorating spirits to be around because they are so fresh to the craft and they have such a thirst for the magic and the spirit of witchcraft and for power and for empowerment and for the success of their rituals and their spells that it's inspiring and it pulls me back out of my comfort zone. And so my advice for practicing witches of whatever years, insert X amount of time, is always keep an open mind as well. Because even though someone might be new to the craft, maybe they're not initiated into any sort of lineage or group of any kind. They're completely new. They've been practicing for 3 months, right? You can still learn something from that person if you're willing to listen to what they have to say. So thank you so much. I just dropped some Pride merch, which I think the promo code is like all capital letters. I'll post it here in the chat because I did make a promo code that's good until the end. It's good until the end of this month. So we've only got a little bit left of this promo code, but if you use the code PRIDE666 on any of the merch, not just the Pride merch, you'll save 15% off of your order. So, and those purchases, I do make a percentage off of. I mean, the platform takes, of course, a bunch of the profit, but I do make a small percentage off of it. And so that is a way that directly supports me. So, and then if you do purchase anything, I would absolutely love for you to, you know, take a picture of it and send it to me or upload it on social media or somewhere. I would love to see it. Oh, hi, Blood. Nice to see you here. You say, heck, the very first time I cast a circle, I felt so silly and ridiculous. I almost gave it up. My advice for the newcomer, know and remember we all feel silly sometimes. It doesn't mean you're wrong. That's great advice. The Baphomet pillow is cute. Elphys Leve, I'm sure, would approve. Thank you. I actually have it right behind me. Oh. I will say that this pillow, because I made and uploaded this design, right? And then they have things that I can put it on. And then as the store improves, or I sell units at the store, I guess it levels up and upgrades and I can do different merch. Like I just recently unlocked slides. And I have some cute ones that say like horror, cute ones, you know? Excuse me. But yeah, I was really surprised with the actual quality of this pillow. I thought it was just going to be like kind of a cheap, uncomfortable, like kind of ugly little decorative pillow with like my cute design on it. But it's actually quite comfortable and like plushy and thick. So it's nice. It's nicer than I thought it would be, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's my Teespring. So it's in my link tree. It should also be in the description of most of my YouTube videos. Hi, Miss Abyss. Nice to see you. Thank you so much. It's good to see some of you guys here. I've been on here for a little over an hour already, and I typically try to keep my lives at about just an hour, but I might stay on for like another 10 minutes or so. Sharon, it's so good to see you here too. I don't know if you've commented earlier or not. I didn't bring my laptop charger over here. It's over at my desk, and my laptop has just died. So for some reason, when I stream here on StreamYard from my phone, there's always a little bit of a delay. So that's why I like to kind of use my laptop, but it's dead and I'm lazy and don't feel like getting up to go get the charger. So I guess if any of you have any questions about solitary versus initiatory witchcraft, or if you have anything that you would like to share about being a solitary witch or being an initiatory witch, comment down below. I would love to answer any questions that you might have in regards to today's Saturn's Day topic, or just share anything that you'd like. Thank you, Elle. I might do more of these Saturn's Day lives. Maybe save some of my controversial yet brave Facebook posts for a Saturn's Day live. Just know that in the future, if you see a Saturn's Day, that it's going to be some shit. That's okay, Blood. You can totally watch this if you want to on the replay. You know, Hellbound, I want to, like, in a perfect world, I would love to be able to stream every Saturday, but as a working witch, Saturdays are normally incredibly busy for me at the shop. Because here's the thing, right? Like, a lot of folks are off on weekends, and so they're coming to their metaphysical stores on those times, and they're looking to get readings or PLRs done, or natal charts, or book classes, So the weekends are actually normally really busy for me. That's why you see most of my uploads and stuff during the week. But this stream's gotten a lot of good engagement, which I'm surprised by because, I wasn't really sure streaming on a Saturday night, like how much engagement there would really be. But there's like 18 of you watching right now, which is pretty cool. I think that's more than, I don't know. I think I've gotten like up to like 20 or so on like a Thursday night. So I don't know. But maybe this can at least be a once a month thing, because I do try to take off at least one full weekend a month. I have to engage in the hedonistic aspects of our mortality every once in a while. Yeah, it can definitely. I mean, it's a lot. It can be very rewarding as well, for sure. I mean, there's pros and cons, If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. Any questions or commentary about initiatory witchcraft? Thank you so much, Lady Ravenwood. I'm playing on my Bluetooth speaker. I won't say her name because she talks back when I say her name. But I've been listening to this Phantom of the Opera-esque music, and so I'm waiting for YouTube to send me a nasty email about using copyrighted music in the background of my live. But I don't like being live without music. Like, I need to figure out a way around that so I don't get like a copyright hit when I'm going live. but like it's awkwardly quiet, just sitting in my room here in my home office, like just talking to my camera phone, you know, with no music on in the background. It's kind of awk. Kind of awk. It's also very refreshing not having any like crazy trolls. I mean, I had that one earlier, but only having one is pretty good. What if you can't lose any blood, period, in a tradition that encourages blood magic? How do you accommodate yourself to that tradition? Okay, are we talking about blood, period? Or like period blood? Either way, if we're talking about venial blood or period blood, I don't know if I'm not sure what tradition would require you to shed blood. I mean, I think it depends on what we're talking about too. I mean, there are definitely some traditions that you might prick your finger. But as far as bloodshed, I mean, I don't know a lot of traditions that require their members to like slit their wrist and bleed over something. But also, like, I think so once you kind of get past that point of seeking and you've been welcomed into the point of petitioning a group, and when you are petitioning the group, I think that's something that should be a conversation when it comes to boundaries, because that should be the dialogue when it comes to petitioning. There's definitely other things that we look at as well. There's astrological things that we take into account. There's our own sort of omen craft that all of us do, but there's also a dialogue around what are your boundaries and what are your expectations. And so that should be squared away during that part of it. So if a group did require you to shed blood to be part of their tradition, and if you were not comfortable with that, then you would just not join that group. Sometimes red wine, pomegranate juice, these can be symbolic, sympathetic links to blood and can just be replaced for that. But if a group really was like, no, we want you to shed blood to be in the group, you wouldn't be in that group. Diabetic Lancet is, yes, that is a really good way. I'm trying to get there myself. Do you have any advice for finding a coven, especially for people who don't have a standard way of practice? I mean, really get involved with like your local community, your local area. Check out your local metaphysical stores. Oftentimes, these metaphysical stores are kind of circling points for aspects of community. So I think that's a really good way. Look for local groups in your area, and get to know those people and see if there's that chemistry there. Yes. No, I understand that menstrual blood is not always an option. Um, but if that is what I believe that a group could theoretically require whatever it is that they require, right? So that would be a conversation that we would have or that you would have, or that you should be having with the coven as far as boundaries and expectations. If it's an expectation that you shed menstrual blood in this group for whatever reason, and if you're unable to shed that menstrual blood, then that is not the group for you. That doesn't mean that you cannot still practice the craft. That does not mean that you do not have access to magic. That does not make you less than. That just means that that is not the group for you. Cindy, though we've not met in person, my favorite thing over the years of following you is how authentic you are. Thank you for holding this space. Oh, thank you so much. You know, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that like living so loudly as yourself is not always easy. Sure, right? There's challenges that come with that. You make a lot of enemies by doing so. Um, it can be scary sometimes, but I find it to be just the only way to live. Like, I couldn't imagine denying parts of who I am in order to just fit in spaces that were never made for me, right? And I hope that like even just as a witch, like my journey and experience, even here on YouTube, I've been on YouTube since 2016. Like I've said this multiple times, but like the witch that I was then is so not the witch that I am now. And so many things have changed. Some things are still the same. Some of my folk practices are still the same. But a lot of my ideas have changed a lot. I've kind of grown up on social media. I'm that generation that has really grown up with these apps. And that's been a blessing and a curse, let me tell you. I'm an anemic with extreme low blood cell count. If it's a coven related thing, I should not. Yeah. Redcap says, if you can't use blood, we do have a variety of other bodily fluids. That is true. That is true. Yeah. Like I said, I think every group, and here's the thing too, there is nothing stopping you from creating your own group. There is nothing stopping you from starting your own neo tradition. You don't have to go out and look for one. If you can't find one, you can start your own. Thank you, Redcap. I need to get a refill. Oh, I do. I do. Well, this has been quite nice. I appreciate all of you watching and hanging out. I'll have to do another Saturn's Day again. Hellbound, your channel has really grown and the hard work you have put in shows. Remember us small channels when you hit 100K. I don't know about 100K. I mean, I didn't know about 2K or even 1K. So thank you, Lady Ravenwood. Yeah, I mean, this for me, YouTube for me is very much a hobby. And it's led me to fall in love with mixed media. And I enjoy it a lot. And it's a hobby. Like, I enjoy creating content. I enjoy editing it. And, you know, I enjoy that. And so I think if I didn't, I wouldn't be here still. I mean, like I said, I've been here since 2016. So I just really like it. We'll see. We'll see. Do you have a favorite type of music to use during your craft or ritual? Metal, folk, classical? Yes, I do. And honestly, it depends on what I'm doing, right? So there are times where I listen to cultural music for various workings, and sometimes I also enjoy classical instrumental music. Sometimes I enjoy more like drumming, kind of almost more cacophonic in that way. I mean, I think that all types of music can be beneficial to use in ritual. I don't really have like one type. that I listen to. It normally depends more so on what kind of working I'm doing. Thank you so much, Ashley. Yeah, I would say like a goal that I have for my channel in terms of growth is I think it would be really, really cool if I could have more of a schedule. That would be a goal that I have because I have been uploading one video a week, which pretty much all the videos that you see on my channel are previously already recorded, edited, and have been on Patreon because every new thing that I make now goes on Patreon and it sits there until I release it onto YouTube. So I would like to have an upload schedule, but that's been kind of tricky to figure out. Like, I want to continue uploading once a week. I just haven't really made that commitment and said that in my videos. I haven't been like, and I upload a witchy video once a week. I haven't said that because, like, I don't know what day I want to upload on. So I've been uploading like once a week, but like I've been uploading on like Mondays and then I've been uploading on like Thursdays. So we'll see. I think that's like a goal though that I have for the channel is just to lock in an upload day because I have a day every day of the week, like is pretty much mapped out for me. And I have a specific day that I record content and I have a specific day that I edit content. And sometimes that happens in the same day, but most of the time it doesn't. And so I would like to have a specific day I upload. And I also really enjoy doing them as premieres. So, but anyway, thank you all for joining. Thank you all so much. I'll probably have another Saturn's Day. I can't promise it's going to be next Saturday. I can't even promise it'll be the Saturday after that. But just know that if you see a Saturn's Day live stream, Saturn's Day for Saturday, then it's going to be some shit that I'm going to be talking about. So, witchy related, occult related, of course, but it's going to be some shit. So I hope all of you have a great rest of your Saturn's Day. Neon Cicada, we're just closing out, but you can definitely catch the replay. Thanks for joining. I hope that you all have a great rest of your Saturday or Sunday or whatever. There'll be a new video coming next week, this upcoming week, whatever. And I'm going to go make another cocktail and take off this dress because I put this gown on just because I wanted to really feel it. And I feel like I felt it and now I'm over it. So I'm ready to take it off, as well as these lashes. I'm ready to take those off. So I hope that you all have a great evening, right? And blessed be.